Welcome specimens of all creed and beliefs. Today is Wednesday. Yesterday we have gotten the reset for NA, and today is the time for EU. So this is the fourth reset of the patch, I guess the last week of the month for this patch, which is what, as we have pointed out a couple of days ago, what is going to give you flying. So I hope everyone has kept up with the achievements needed to fly, so now you can be a little bit faster doing your chores in Zeret Mortis. Not that the Zeret Mortis chores were that long to begin with, to be fair. I would have much rather traded flying in Zeret Mortis for flying in the Mo or in Kortia, honestly. Now, we have a few news to point out before we go on a few other things to talk about, which is the hotfix that Blizzard planned for this reset. So you already have it in NA, you're about to see it, to experience it in EU, which is the expansion of what you can get from the Great Vault. No, it's not gear. You still have the same 9 options, 3 from the raid, 3 from Mythic Plus, and 3 from PvP. The bigger change, the change in question, is about the Attendant's Token of Merit. Now, perhaps you don't even know what it is because you barely even looked at it in the first place. This is the participation trophy you can get from the Great Vault when all of your choices from the gear are terrible and you end up picking that thing up. Now, for a while, most of the options from this token have been garbage. Not really that relevant, honestly. They weren't definitely making you feel good in case you didn't need any of the items being offered. You know, if you didn't happen to have any of the gear being usable, it wasn't that good of a feeling to know that, well, at least I can pick 3 of these tokens up and get me some 1500 soul ash. That doesn't feel good. So Blizzard decided to expand the way the system works now. First of all, now you can carry as high as 12 of these tokens, no longer just 3. So you can save them for the future if you need to. More importantly, they also did change the quantity of these tokens that you can get every reset. It's going to be now based on the amount of options that you get from the Great Vault. So if you only have 1 Great Vault option, that's just 2 tokens. If you have 2 Great Vault options, that's 4 tokens. If you have 3 Great Vault options or more, it is 6 tokens. Now, the options don't need to be in the same row, in the same type of activity. It's just as long as you have unlocked 3 or 2 or 1. Now, if the rewards of this token are still garbage, then what does this change? Well, it changes that Blizzard also updated the type of rewards you can get from this token. First in line, we have the Overflowing Chest of Riches, which is going to award you 3000 gold and is going to cost 3 tokens. This, in short, I asked some experts, mathematicians, and they came up with the numbers. They said that if you finish the week with 3 options from the Great Vault and you get 6 tokens, you will be able to use 3 tokens twice for this reward, which is going to total out at about 6000 gold per week. This is what they came up with their number counting. So one option could be, hey, you didn't get any gear, but you get 6000 gold at least. The other option is the Certified Vouchsafe. This one is going to increase your renown by 1, and it costs 1 token, which means every week you get 6 renown levels if you don't get any gear. Then you have the next one, which is the Bottled Night Sky. This is going to reward you with 25 Genesis motes, and it's going to cost 1 Attendant's Note of Merit if you want to spend all 6 of your tokens for these Genesis motes, for the crafting, for the protoform synthesis, pets and mounts type of crafting. Then you have the Treatise on Patterns in the Purpose. This one is going to be about the Cipher of the First One's reward. It costs 1 Attendance Token of Merit, which means you can get 240 Ciphers of the First One every week if you don't get any gear. Then we do have the Tribute to the Enlightened. This is going to be about rep. It's going to give you 150 reputation with the Enlightened, and it costs 1 Attendance Token of Merit, which is about 1000 rep every week if you don't need any gear. Lastly, we have the big piece. We have the bigger reward that many players will go for. This is something that was almost forgotten this patch. We sort of just not talked about it because it just wasn't anywhere in the game, which is the socket. There's going to be the Ephemera Infused Mesh, which is going to be an item allowing you to put a socket into a Season 3 Shadowlands helmet, necklace, bracer, belt, or rings that does not already have a socket. And this one costs 6 attendance tokens of merit. So the full amount of tokens you can get in 1 week, the maximum amount you can get in 1 week, can be fully transformed into one socket. So basically 1 socket per week. Now let's talk about these rewards for a minute. First of all, it's worth pointing out that the socket has to come in exchange of not getting any gear from the Great Vault. So, first you think, well, 1 socket per week is kind of okay. After all, you have 6 total slots that you can put a socket in. Perhaps 1 or 2 of these slots come with a socket already. For example, if you have to craft a legendary in any of these slots, you will be offered a guaranteed socket when you craft a legendary. So maybe, you need 4 to 5 sockets. It's going to take you about a month to get all the sockets you need for your gear. That's kind of okay, it's not that bad. Well, yeah, the problem is that it has to come in return for you not picking anything from the Great Vault. That is kind of the bittersweet thing, because at the very least, back in the Maw, back in Korthia, yes, it was grindy. Yes, it was about reputation. Yes, it was about getting the Stygia and the Archivist research to get the sockets, but they had nothing to do with deciding between sockets or gear. Yeah, it costed more of your time because you had to grind more, but after that, after you actually reached your goal, you could freely put your sockets wherever you wanted. Instead, this new system is going to cost you no grinding, it's going to cost you no extra time, as long as you kill a handful of bosses or a few Mythic Plus keys every week, which you would be doing anyways. You will be offered a socket, so no grind required, but it will come at the cost of a piece of gear. So that is kind of the bittersweet situation that we have with this socket. Of course, the intention is to consider this an end game type of upgrade, so by the time it becomes less and less likely that you will be needing upgrades from the Great Vault, okay? After a few weeks, perhaps you do mythic raiding as well, so you start looting 278 mythic pieces from the raid as well. It's gonna become less and less likely that you can find upgrades from the Great Vault, which means you can start moving towards getting the socket upgrades. So these type of upgrades are not really linear with your progression. It's very likely that as you progress, you will still be needing the gear offered from the Great Vault, and only a little bit later you will start having more chances of choosing the socket. Now, aside from that, some consideration must be had towards the other rewards. Okay, imagine someone doesn't care too much about sockets. Imagine someone doesn't care too much about min-maxing your gear with sockets, but would rather be interested in some of these other additions. For example, stuff to craft your pets and mounts. Some people might be interested in getting to Exalted with the Enlightened, getting reputation from this Great Vault, and a few other options. Now, let's start with the gold. If you choose the gold reward and you have at least 3 options in the Great Vault, that's 6,000 gold per week. Is this a good amount, I guess, for a weekly reward? 6,000 gold? I think it's okay. I would have put it at like 10,000 gold, 5,000 per option. I think it would have been a better reward for you. Yes, we have to consider that very likely this tier is going to last for a long time, is going to last for a year. So imagine you have a couple of characters and you can get, 10,000 gold each per week for a year. It's nowhere near Worlds of Draenor Garrison level of gold generation you can do, but it's still something, okay? Still some significant passive gold you could get every week if you bumped it up higher than this. I still think it should have. I still think 6,000 gold per week is slightly low for what I would like, but it's the better compared to the other ones that we're about to go over. So one is the Renown. This is probably the worst one of all of them, because 1 Renown per application that costs 1 token means 6 Renown per week. Come on, 6 Renown per week is just too low. I think even 10 Renown per week would have been a kind of weak reward. I would have started at a very minimum of 2 Renown per token. So 6 tokens per week, 12 Renown per week. That, I think, would have been the minimum to make this even remotely viable. It is currently probably the weakest one. The other one is the Buckled Night Sky, which is the one that gives you the Genesis mode for your protoform synthesis crafting. So this is for, as I said, pets and mounts. So this is the green item that you need in the hundreds of. 300, 400, 500, 600 of these are needed to craft a single mount, for example. So again, it seems kind of on the low side. First of all, because you're not getting the rare you're not getting the rare materials needed for crafting the mounts, and you're only getting the uncommon one, and then is likely still on the low end. I would bump this up to 250 at the very minimum every week to make this even remotely appealing. For now, I think it's a little bit on the low side of rewards. One that is probably a little bit better is the 3 ties on patterns in the purpose, which is the one that gives you the cipher. Ciphers are the first ones resource, the currency. You get 40 per token, you get 6 tokens a week, so that's 240 tokens per week. Now, there are 2 problems with this. 240 right now might be kind of little, but at the same time, the amount of ciphers you need is limited. There is only a fixed amount of upgrades you can get from the ciphers with your cipher system, the upgrade system. So after a while, this is effectively going to become useless. You can only use that many. So I guess 240 is okay if you look at it that way as a reward. Lastly, we have the rep. The tribute to the enlightened, it's 150 rep per token. You know, if you consider, as we made the video a couple of days ago, you wanted to get to revered by this week, it means that you would get 1000 rep every week only if you didn't get any item towards your race to exalted. I guess it's okay. You know, if you take this, you do the weekly and you do the world boss, that's already 3000 rep per week. That's less than 6 weeks, less than a month and a half to get to exalted. So I guess it's okay as a reward. You know, look at it another way. Who would essentially tell you that you have to kill 80 to 100 less rares every week for the same rep. If you don't get an item from the Great Vault, that's the reward you get in terms of reputation. So I guess it's okay. None of these are particularly great. You know, the currency rewards, the extra rewards from the rep to the Genesis modes, to the renown, to the gold, are all kind of on the low end. The only one that is very good is the socket, but the way in which it is given is problematic because you have to forego a piece of gear. The entire point of using a socket is that you want to use it on a kick-ass, best in slot, highest item level piece of gear. And that's what exactly you get from the Great Vault, the 278 pieces from the Great Vault. So having to choose between the two is gonna feel sad every time. Still, if you want to look at the glass half full, at least now it's in the game. Because up to this point, the socket item wasn't even in the game. Up to this point, you had no way other than RNG or crafting a legendary in one of these slots to get a socket in your gear. So at least now it's available in the game. At least now you can choose it yourself. It's not no longer up to complete RNG whether or not you loot a piece with a socket. Still, it's not gonna feel as good because you always will have to choose between the socket and the piece of gear offered from the Great Vault. But as I said, with a glass half full perspective, at the very least now it's been implemented into the game. Now, some few more additions to the end of this video for the start of this week of 9.2. We have gotten even more nerfs to the Tazavesh dungeon, Solia's Gambit and Streets of Wonder. Particularly, the trash mobs have been nerfed multiple times before, and now with this round of nerfs. They have been quite problematic, these dungeons, to complete. First of all, players don't even know which dungeon is which. It's not the first time that I queue up in a dungeon expecting to be Streets of Wonder and ends up being Solia's Gambit, because players apparently queue up their key in the wrong section, even though the game automatically sets your looking for group request in the right key because it looks at your bags and which key you have. People still somehow mess this up. Now, I have my theory about this dungeon. You know, when Karazhan was transformed from a Mega Dungeon to Mythic Plus, and when Mechagon was transformed from a Mega Dungeon to Mythic Plus, things were not this bad. The dungeons were much more known and smooth to progress in Mythic Plus. Players knew the bosses and the mechanics of the trash even better, even the path to take. I think this is the result of making Tazavesh not needed in its Mega Dungeon form. I think that Karazhan was needed because it had good gear, it had a pretty good hard mode achievement that awarded you the mount. It also had a very good best in slot trinket for agility users at the end boss. Mechagon was the same. You kind of needed it for your essence progression. One of the strongest essences was tied to the last boss. So These two mega dungeons were, trained for the players week after week in their mega dungeon version. Tazavesh wasn't. There was no need for you to get into Tazavesh. There was no special OP trinket, even in its lower item level version. There was no achievement or no special borrowed power that you could get from the mega dungeon. What happened is many people just didn't bother to do the mega dungeons, so that now that these dungeons are into the Mythic Plus pool, people just run in there like headless chickens. They have no idea what to do compared to dungeons like Mechagon or Karazhan. This has been the current problem these first couple of weeks in Tazavesh. By now, by the third reset, I hope most players will have gotten some pointers in all their wipes in these keys on how things are supposed to work. So this was the last change for this weekly hotfix, the nerfs to the dungeon. We will talk soon about the raid as well, because one of the things people were expecting were more hotfix nerfs to Halondrus, to Mythic Halondrus. We will talk about the difficulty of the raid soon. After all, I made a video wondering whether or not this would have been the hardest tier, starting from this being one of the hardest heroic tiers ever, so we will talk about it soon. For now, however, we can stop here for this this new reset of 9.2. As usual, thank you guys for watching the video and for helping to contribute to the growth of this channel. You can do more by liking and commenting on the video down below, as well as subscribing to the channel. Because I'm feeling hopeful for what is going to be in my Great Vault, I'm not going to put any limits for today on the subscription button. You can also, of course, follow me up on Twitter over here. If you look at it once a week, you might even see one of my tweets. And then you can support me even more on Patreon over here. Going on to my Patreon and supporting me there will also give you access to my Discord server. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, oh.